What's the most supernatural experience you've ever had? Always been a skeptic for paranormal stuff, but here's my one experience. I was at a summer camp when I was 15. There was a ghost story told every year I went that was the same story. I'll give the Cliff Notes version. Woman and husband on honeymoon at resort once built on the land the camp is on today. Resort burned down with husband in sight as they were getting ready to have pictures taken in wedding gown and tuxedo. Woman vanished without a trace. Search party found her 2 months later, asking if someone could help her find her husband. A group of paramedics go with her, she was still in the dress, to find her husband. Nobody returns. Some people say that you can see her every night of the full moon and new moon as a floating orb of light on the water of the lake. If she comes to shore and near you, act asleep or she'll make you come with her to find her husband. It's a new moon, the first night we're there. We sleep in Adirondacks, which are 3-walled cabins with a roof. One wall is open to the air, and for maintenance's sake, open downhill, facing the lake, so they can be pressure washed, and the runoff drains to the lake. When I worked there, we used water, so there were no pollutants used when cleaning. I slept on the outside edge nearest the opening because I brought a cot to sleep on, and it made the best sense space-wise. I'm laying there, falling asleep in the pitch black, and a light just slowly gets brighter. I think it's a counselor coming over to make sure we're falling asleep, so I peek with my eyes mostly closed. It's the floating orb of light from the story on the lake, as bright during a car's headlights. It's just slowly and silently floating across the lake, towards me. I'm just frozen, because what the heck do I do against that? I can see it from through my eyelids because it's that bright. I peek again, and it's probably 4 feet away from me. Absolutely paralyzing. It keeps going uphill, and I watch the light shift as it passed the staff cabins first, then through the trees. Needless to say, I was awake until I heard the birds start waking up and moved to the back corner of the Adirondack the next night, forfeiting the cot's location. Here's the rub. I didn't even know about the story until 4 nights after the fact when we went on a night hike. My brain started going into overtime to connect the dots. It made going back as a staff member an interesting experience. This comment will get swallowed like my soul did when this happened. When I was about 17, I went to go live with my dad. Had a cool teen pad in the basement. 0 windows, so it was pitch black with the lights off. One night, I turn the lights off and go to bed. I feel something walk onto my mattress, futin' on the floor. I thought nothing of it, so much so I just thought it was the dog, even though I don't recall her being there. Get up to let the dog out. No dog. Go to sleep. This proceeds to happen every fleabing night for the next 7 months. Start sleeping with the lights on. Still, I can feel and see the imprints on my bed of some creature walking onto my bed and hovering inches from my face. Dad is super religious, so I don't want to tell him for fear of him freaking out about the devil. Oversleep one day and wake up to an angry phone call from my dad lecturing me about being responsible. I'm sitting at the edge of my futon mattress. In front of me is another futon that actually has the frame that I kept on the couch position, my idea of cool as a kid. Across from that by about 3 feet is the closet that leads to the water heater. As my dad is yelling at me on the phone and I'm sitting there groggy, waking up, and angry, the door to the closet flies off the hinges with great force and slams into the arm of the wooden futon frame. I am so stunned, I can't even scream, but I jump immediately. My dad on the phone hears the slam and proceeds to scream at me, asking what the flurbo that was. I stammer and tell him the door fell off the hinges and hit the futon. I know he is going to be angry about the giant couch arm-sized hole that is now in the door. He answers of course with, doors don't just fall off hinges. I am now grounded for destroying property and lying. Now, the entity is more comfortable. It gets closer, stays longer, and doesn't wait till nighttime to come out. I am in my own personal grounded hell with this thing. I don't think it was too malicious because the end of the interactions is abrupt. One night, it is on my bed presumably staring at me. Again, I can see its imprint but can't actually see it. My go-to coping was to just pretend it wasn't happening. I just ignored it as best I could. One night, it decided it didn't want to be ignored anymore and physically grabbed my arm and yanked it up. I ran as fast as I could out of that room. It then followed me up the stairs, could clearly hear the footsteps. It was the middle of the night. My dad was sleeping on the living room couch. I squeezed in next to him thinking if it tried to actually hurt me, I could scream and my dad would wake up. The creature got to the top of the stairs. It did not come near me. Instead, its footsteps went into the kitchen where I heard a crash. My dad didn't wake up. I was terrified. After the crash and realizing this thing can actually leave my sleeping room, nothing ever happened again. It's almost like it felt bad for scaring me and just wanted to validate its existence or something. Still terrified me though. Flash forward to about 10 years later. I'm now an adult and on a road trip, just me and my dad. He is separated from his wife and has taken the room in the basement. He confides in me during this bonding time that he feels something walking across his bed at night. My parents' house is straight out haunted. I remember growing up and things go missing or breaking or hearing someone with a limp walk on down the stairs. I always knew the house was haunted. There were times when the aforementioned footsteps on the stairs would manifest. Honestly, it wasn't too much, aside from the times when I would walk downstairs at night to get something to drink or something. Some nights, there was a mist on a part of the stairs. It would scare me to walk through it, but other than that, you couldn't feel it. It wasn't cold or anything. I remember one night, it only happened once, when going downstairs one night, the ghost started going down the stairs when I was going back up. That's when I saw 2 footprints to press into the carpet on the landing. Craziest thing I ever saw at the time. Fast forward to now, I had to move back in with my parents because of the pandemic. Anyway, I haven't heard anything on the stairs. Things are still going missing or breaking. To be honest, I always thought it was my 2 older brothers covering for each other or being jerks as older brothers can be, but the other day, it stole one of my shoes. I'm getting ready to go get some cigarettes, but go to put my shoes and only had one. I always take my shoes off at the same place every day and it wasn't there. After about 10 minutes of searching to no avail, I grab another pair and leave. I was alone. Everyone else was out of the house. I get back and my other shoe was on the coffee table. It wasn't there when I left for the store. This kind of thing is a constant thing in this house and you get used to it, but it is really annoying. Back when I lived at my dad's house. In my room, I was sleeping. I usually kept the TV on, but this night, I had trouble sleeping so I turned it off. Eventually I fell asleep but was startled awake by a really tight grip on my ankle. My body was still partially asleep so it was very hard to move my body. I did not see anything besides my leg getting lifted up some, and then I started getting pulled off the bed. I am a big guy so that would take a pretty strong person to do that. I was able to grab onto the edge of my mattress and pull myself back, then grabbing the remote and turning the TV on to have some light and seeing nothing at the end of my bed. I turned the light on and checked my entire room, and there was nothing out of the ordinary. Still no idea what happened. In the UK, it is pretty common to be able to stay in holiday cottages on the grounds of old stately homes. Usually it's the gardener's cottage or converted stables or something like that. Now my parents are huge history nerds, so most of my childhood holidays were in these old, we're talking 500+ years, cottages. On one of these holidays, we stayed in an old caretaker's cottage with an amazing old-fashioned clawfoot bathtub that little 8-year-old me was obsessed with. I used to spend hours in this massive bath every night, playing with bubbles and rubber ducks. I used to sit in the bath facing away from the toilet and towards the door, but on the second week of the holiday, I decided to change things up a bit and sit the other way around. Standing where the toilet was the ghost of this black guy who had clearly been whacked over the head with something. He was covered in blood, and he had a noose round his neck. Despite this, he was just standing there very calmly, staring right at me. Felt like he was staring right into my soul. Obviously I was terrified and ran out the bathroom as quickly as I could and never had another bath in that holiday cottage again. Of course, my parents tried to calm me down and managed to convince me that I just imagined it, but there was still no way in heck I was getting in that bathtub again. Just before we left the cottage on our last day, we were writing in the guest book and a leaflet about the cottage fell out. It turned out that there was a black servant working as the caretaker of this old stately home, and the nearby villagers felt that he was too above his station and killed him, and he was injured in the exact same way as the ghost I saw. Now I had never seen this leaflet or read anything else about this guy before, so to read the details of the murder and have them exactly match up with the ghost I'd seen made my blood run cold. I was a very skeptical kid, but I really couldn't think of any other explanation than it being that guy's ghost. My sophomore year in college, my roommate was out doing a project in the library, so I was alone studying in my dorm. Our closets had these bright lights that we basically used as lamps instead of the fluorescent overhead lights. During this particular night, the light in my closet goes out. I think nothing of it and go into my closet to change the light bulb. I feel a little uneasy at this point, but I try to shake it off and get back to studying. 30 minutes later, the new bulb goes out and I get this really deep sense of dread. I slowly look up into the closet, and it looks like a black figure looking back at me from my closet. I ran over and shut the closet door and immediately booked it to the library to tell my roommate. It took us a few days to open the closet door again, but when we did, the thing was gone. We changed the broken bulb and it never happened again.